Can you grow your veggies just using fish? Hi, I'm Conrad and this is the Feral Garden. Stay with me and we'll answer that question. So what's all this about growing your veggies using fish? It's a system of agriculture called aquaponics. And what it does is it uses fish that produce the fertilizer to grow the plants. It's part of a cycle, and what the fish do is they provide ammonia from their gills, plus of course their waste. It goes into the garden beds where it turns into nitrites and then changes via bacteria into nitrates, which is the fertilizer that the plants take up. The water then recycles itself back down to the fish, and the ammonia, which would be poisonous to the fish, has been removed or converted. It's been used for quite a while. There have been a lot of different systems that use it, and what I've decided to do was have a little bit of an experiment with it. So the best way to show you is to take you actually through how I put together the little bit of aquaponics that I have in my feral garden. So let's go and check out the aquaponics system. This is the first part of the system. This is a chop and flip. I put it together with instructions from Rob, who's up in Queensland, with his aquaponics and backyard farm website. I'll put a link in the description, and he has an excellent way of making these chop and flip systems. The first chop and flip I had by itself, and it produced quite a lot of veggies. So let's go and have a little look at the components of it. As I said, the first part is the fish. The fish are down the bottom. This part of the tank down here is the largest part of the IBC. And if you have a look, you'll see the fish. We'll actually go and take a little tour of the fish. As you can see, the fish are swimming quite happily in their little tank. They give off that ammonia and of course their waste. It goes up through the pump that's down the bottom. That pump, if you have a look, goes up through a black 1-inch pipe up the back. You'll see off to the side we have another white pipe. That's actually what we call a venturi. It actually provides bubbles or moving water and oxygen to the fish. Over here we can see water coming back in from our grow beds up the top, and we'll talk about how that happens in a moment. Now if we go up to our grow bed up the top, you can see this particular grow bed has lots and lots of lettuce. Now the grow bed media over here, I use expanded clay. It's an inert material, doesn't provide any nutrients at all, but it provides a media for the plants to grow in, let their roots develop. The plants then take up the nutrient provided by the fish after it's been converted by the bacteria. I have 3 grow beds. I started off with the 1 grow bed, but it wasn't quite enough to keep us in lettuce and greens, so I added 2 other grow beds to the system. Both of these grow beds up here are expanded clay as well. This one's the round clay, it's called Hydroton. And this is a different type of expanded clay. It's a little bit rougher, not quite as round, and it was available locally, so that's one of the reasons I bought it. But it also holds the plants a little bit better. The round material really moves around, and if you have large plants, you'll find that those plants can't really get their roots into the system, and they tend to get blown over. Whereas the rougher material tends to hold the roots a little bit better. Up the back you can see the pumps taking the liquid in, and that goes into the grow bed. These beds are what we call flood and drain. In other words, they flood up to a certain level and then drain. The way it works is with an automatic siphon. Again, Rob's website shows you how to build the whole lot. The automatic siphon here has lots of slits and holes in it. When it gets to a certain level up inside, it creates a siphon. And if we have a look down the bottom, you'll see a little standpipe. When that water gets up to that standpipe, that's when the siphon starts. Down the bottom you'll see a couple of little cuts, and that's where the air can then get into the siphon and break it. So when it gets down to that level, it lets the air in and it breaks the siphon. The only trick you've got to do is you've just got to make sure the flow is not too strong, otherwise it won't break the siphon, or too weak, or the siphon won't even start. And it takes a little bit of fiddling to get that right. You have adjusters to go through. You see one up the back there. You can adjust the flow rate going into the tank. And once you've got it right and once you're happy with it, it just runs by itself. And you can see one of the pipes at the moment is actually flowing in to the sump tank, or to the fish tank down the bottom. So the water just works its way around the cycle. Really, you have nothing else to do, which is what I like about the system. Here you see it grows greens really well. We really like growing our lettuce in here particularly. I am trialling some eggplants, but I think they tend to get a little bit too tall. Over here I've got a lot of lettuce that's actually bolting. I'll show you how I harvest some of that in a moment. You'll see also on Rob's video, he recommends putting filters on his. I actually used to have filters on each of these, but I found the plants didn't grow as well. So I've taken the filters out. Filters are actually sitting down here. You can see the 3 filters I built down here. They're waiting, maybe to be used again on another day. So I'll show you how I harvest some of the lettuce. You get to see what the root growth is like. And then I'll take you through some of the advantages and disadvantages of an aquaponics system. So let's have a look at some of the lettuce we've grown in our aquaponics system. It's getting a little past its best, starting to bolt, which is why I like to have successive plantings. Excuse the water, it's a constant feature of an aquaponics system. So over here we have one that's starting to bolt. What I do is I take off the best leaves, and we'll take those for harvesting, and then I'll take all of the expanded clay. You see the expanded clay gets right into the roots of the plant, and taking all that clay out, I then feed all of that to my worms. What I suggest you do is you just keep a bucket nearby, and as you need to, you throw those into the bucket, and then, as I said, we put them into the worm farm, which I'll show you in a moment. So here's another one over this side. Have a look at those roots. Just shake it out. Try to get all of that out of the system. Now, if it's no good, I'd rather feed it to the worms. If the leaves are any good, I'll pop them in for us to use. And then we can sort them out. Really, nothing goes to waste. If it's like this one and it's a bit ordinary, it goes straight to our little worm farm, which I keep underneath. I find that growing greens, particularly lettuce, bok choy, those sort of things, microgreens, anything you like, are the best thing that grow in an aquaponics system. So what I'll do is I'll now take those and we'll pop them into our worm farm. So underneath the grow beds, I have my worm farm. So all of the material that I don't want to eat goes into the worm farm or into our compost bins. Here's my fish food. I have flakes in the morning and koi pellets in the afternoon. Open up my worm farm, and what I do is dig a hole, throw some of the old hydrogen balls that have managed to make it in there, and I take all of the leafy matter that I don't want plus the roots, and that goes into the worm farm. And it takes them a couple of days and all of that will be polished off. This means I end up with nice nutrient rich compost that I can use on the wicking beds or the other garden beds if I want to. Always cover your worm farm up. They like to be kept nice and dark and nice and moist. Pop the lid back on, and it's as simple as that. Reduce, reuse, recycle. That's the mantra of the feral garden. Down the bottom, if we have any compost tea, we can collect it down the bottom, mix it with some water, and again pop it into our wicking beds or our other garden beds. So it's all part of the cycle of how we use our material in the feral garden. Our worm beds. So why do I like aquaponics? Well, number one, it's fun. I quite enjoy having the fish around. They become more like pets for me, and the whole cycle tends to look after itself. You have to have a pump and the water keeps going round and round, and I can leave it for a week or so and not have any dramas at all. The only thing you need to do is you need to have someone feed those fish for you. Now, I'm not interested in having commercial quantities of fish. A lot of the bigger aquaponics system actually grow fish that you can eat. But around this area, silver perch, well, I'm not really interested in growing silver perch. I've caught it before, and it's not a fish I particularly look forward to eating. If I could grow trout if it was cooler, or if I could grow barramundi if it was warmer, I might consider having a larger fish tank. So what are some of the disadvantages of an aquaponics system? Well, it does need maintenance. You need to look after it. You need to test the water to make sure that your ammonia level's not too high and it will kill your fish. You need to have that nitrification cycle working, and you need to test that you've got nitrites and nitrates at the right balance, and that the pH of your water is right for your plants to grow in. It also can be quite expensive. You've got to pay for all of the components, particularly if you're buying a full-blown commercial system, and even the things like the expanded clay balls can be quite expensive. So if you're looking for something cheap, well, maybe aquaponics is not for you. Again, if you're into DIY, you can build the whole system yourself, but you need to have those handyman skills. Otherwise, you can look at some of the commercial systems out there, and a lot of those can even be set up for you, and they are pretty well a set and forget system. So is aquaponics something you might be interested in? Check out the links. That'll take you to some of the websites, and you can make your own mind up. As I said, I find it's a lot of fun, but it's only part of the feral garden. I wouldn't have my whole system aquaponics. I like to mix it up with the wicking beds, the aquaponics, and a few of the other systems I'll show you a little bit later on. So join me again for the feral garden, and I'll see you then.